When the Vietnamese army captured Phnom Penh, the capital of Cambodia, in early 1979, they discovered a nation in ruin. The city, once vibrant and thriving, was nearly empty and desolate. Among the horrors that greeted them was a high school that had been converted into a prison by the Khmer Rouge. Known as Security Prison 21, or simply S-21, this facility stood as a grim symbol of terror. Surrounded by electrified barbed wire and fitted with iron bars over the windows, the prison had become a place of systematic torture and execution. Inside S-21, the prisoners were not criminals, but rather teachers, doctors, students, engineers, monks, and factory workers. Each was accused of treason against the regime. Tortured relentlessly, many were forced to name friends, colleagues, or family members as co-conspirators. Entire families, including young children and the elderly, were brought in, interrogated, and ultimately executed. The regime's paranoia grew so intense that even loyal party members and senior politicians found themselves imprisoned and killed. At least 18,145 people were held at S-21, and only a few survived. This prison was one of more than 150 torture and execution centers established across Cambodia during the Khmer Rouge's rule. Today, S-21 stands as a memorial to those lost and a chilling testament to the regime's brutality. The Khmer Rouge was the ruling Communist Party of Kampuchea, which governed the country between 1975 and 1979. Led by Pol Pot, the party pursued a radical agenda to reconstruct Cambodian society along rigid ideological lines, resulting in one of the worst genocides of the 20th century. Pol Pot's vision, inspired by Mao Zedong's Great Leap Forward, sought to create a completely self-sufficient agrarian society. The regime called this project the Super Great Leap Forward. After gaining power through civil war in 1975, the Khmer Rouge declared that their revolution would surpass those in China, Korea, and Vietnam. Driven by speed and paranoia, they launched a massive campaign to rebuild Cambodia through forced labor and self-imposed isolation from the outside world. One of the Khmer Rouge's first acts was to empty the cities. Millions of people were forced from their homes and marched into the countryside to work in collective farms. These new agricultural cooperatives were expected to triple the nation's rice production within 4 years. However, the country had been devastated by civil war, and nearly 3/4 of its draft animals had perished. By 1975, rice production had already declined by 84%. Nonetheless, the leadership believed that ideological purity and revolutionary spirit could overcome material limitations. The regime treated agriculture like a military campaign. All citizens, regardless of age or health, were conscripted into labor. Days were long and punishing, often stretching 10 to 14 hours under harsh conditions. Children, elderly, and the sick were not exempt. Fields had to be tilled, dams constructed, and irrigation canals dug, often with bare hands and rudimentary tools. Slogans adorned the camps, urging workers to sacrifice your life to accomplish Angkar's work and to stay at the worksite until death. Despite this massive labor force, the regime diverted much of the rice for export or for internal party use. Starvation followed. Survivors recalled being constantly hungry. One girl, Farath, was placed in a children's work unit at the age of 11. She helped dig trenches and build dams, surviving on 2 small daily servings of rice with salt. Though her group was considered favored, the rations were still not enough. After 3 months of exhausting labor, a celebration was held with music, speeches, and mass marriages. Farath was praised for her work, yet her 2 younger sisters had died of starvation during that time. Back home, her elderly grandmother had been assigned to care for the younger children. Too frail to work, she received no food and eventually lost the strength to care for them. When the girls fell ill from hunger, there was no one to help. After their deaths, the grandmother survived briefly on hidden medicine, but regular inspections by Khmer Rouge cadres led to the discovery of the medicine and the confiscation of their only cooking pot. With no food or resources left, the grandmother soon passed away. The Khmer Rouge banned all private property and even individual acts of survival. Cooking food privately, tending personal gardens, or foraging were considered crimes. The state owned everything, including natural resources and even food. Any act seen as private or individualistic was punishable by death. As famine worsened, Pol Pot did not alter his policies. Instead, he blamed the agricultural failures on imaginary enemies. Shortfalls in rice production were attributed to sabotage, laziness, or counter-revolutionary behavior. Criticism was met with arrest, torture, or execution. The party turned its wrath inward. Accusations were based on flimsy or invented evidence. Professionals such as doctors and teachers were viewed with suspicion. Wearing glasses or speaking a foreign language could be enough to warrant execution. This purge of intellectuals and professionals led to a collapse in basic health care. Medical supplies were non-existent, and trained staff had either been executed or had gone into hiding. The population, already weakened by hunger and overwork, received no medical support. Those who grew sick were accused of malingering. Khmer Rouge slogans declared, "We must wipe out all those who imagine they are ill." The result was mass death from exhaustion, illness, and despair. The regime maintained control through a powerful secret police network. Anyone suspected of subversion was brought to prisons like S-21. There, the accused were tortured into confessing imaginary crimes. Chum Mai, an engineer, was one such victim. He endured 12 days of torture, including electric shocks, beatings, and the removal of his toenails. Eventually, he signed a confession saying he worked for the CIA, a term he had never even heard before. Those he named were subsequently arrested and executed. He was one of the few who lived to tell his story. Not all of the victims were Cambodian. Several foreigners were also captured and executed. One case involved a British teacher named John Dawson, a Canadian named Stuart Glass, and a New Zealander named Carrie Hamill. While sailing near Thai waters, they accidentally drifted into Cambodian territory and were apprehended by a Khmer Rouge patrol. Glass was killed on the spot. Dawson and Hamill were taken to S-21. Under torture, Dawson wrote a forced confession mixing facts with false claims about being a CIA agent. Once confessions were extracted, victims were sent to execution sites known as the killing fields. During the 4-year rule of the Khmer Rouge, over 1 million Cambodians were executed and buried in these killing fields. Often the victims were forced to dig their own graves before being beaten or poisoned to death. Khmer Rouge soldiers, many of them young and taken from rural peasant families, carried out these executions. The brutality was methodical and impersonal. Even newborns were not spared. To this day, mass graves are still being uncovered across Cambodia. The genocide claimed the lives of between 1.5 and 2 million people, approximately 1/4 of the country's population at the time. The terror only ended when Vietnamese forces invaded and captured Phnom Penh in 1979. Pol Pot and his followers fled to the Thai border and launched a guerrilla insurgency that continued for years. The Khmer Rouge gradually lost power and influence. Pol Pot died in 1998, reportedly of a heart attack. In his final interview, he expressed no remorse, claiming that everything he had done was for the good of Cambodia. The legacy of the Khmer Rouge remains deeply ingrained in Cambodian society. S-21 now functions as the Tuol Sleng Genocide Museum, preserving the memory of those who suffered and died. The killing fields have become sites of mourning and reflection. Cambodia continues to seek justice and healing after one of the darkest chapters in modern history.